Welcome to the February regular meeting of the Calgary Police Commission. I call this meeting to order and ask that everyone ensure your microphones are muted until you need to speak. My name is Amtul Siddiqui and I'm chair of the commission. I'm joined today by Commissioners Sean Cornett, Susan Mallon, Cherie Nyson-Jordan, Ayo Adidaran, Aaron Noga, Marcia Hansen, and Councillors Jennifer Wyness and Terry Wong. Commissioners Kelly Ogle and Rob Tenge will also be joining us later. Today's Calgary Police Service representatives are led by Acting Chief Constable Katie McClellan. On her behalf, Superintendent Rashid, would you please introduce those you expect to speak during today's meeting?
Good afternoon, Chair, Commission. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'd like to introduce members of the Calgary Police Service. From my left to right, we have Chief People Officer Kim Armstrong, Acting Senior Finance Officer Tricia Spademan, Deputy Chief Chad Tawfik, Acting Chief Katie McClellan, Acting Deputy Chief Jeff Bell, Deputy Chief Corey Daly, Deputy Chief Raj Gill, Executive Director Catherine Murphy. We also have Director Michael Nunn, Acting Director Dr. Amory Hamilton Henry, Business Strategist Jody Jimenez, Business Strategist Annie Sarwar. Online, we also have Executive Directors Mel Onsescu and Tiffany Fastnage. And with us here in the room, we also have Executive Director Brent Dyer, Superintendent Ryan Aliff, Superintendent Joe Brar, and a couple of CPS guests today. We have Chief Superintendent Dave Hall from the RCMP, Mr. Troy McLeod, who is a Corporate Director for G7 from the City of Calgary, and also Acting Inspector Rod McNeil, Business Strategist Selena Clausen, and Sergeant Jason Zirk. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. For those not familiar with our role, our commission is a body of 10 community members and 2 city councillors appointed by City Council and the Government of Alberta. We provide independent citizen governance and oversight of the Calgary Police Service on behalf of all Calgarians. To protect the political neutrality of the police, Alberta's Police Act requires that the police chief report directly to us instead of elected officials. We provide direction to the police through the chief, police policies, monitoring the police complaint process, and approval of how the police budget is spent. Today is one of 8 regular meetings we have each year to openly discuss police governance and oversight matters with the service's leadership and to hear from the public. We also have several private monthly committee meetings where commissioners work more directly with the service on various matters that cannot be discussed publicly. Our commission is meeting today on the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, made up of the Sissiga, Kainai, and Piikani First Nations. It's also home to the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the I'ahe Nakota people of Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Goodstoney First Nations. These are the people who made a treaty with the Crown, forming Treaty 7 territory. Calgary is also home to the Otipimswak Métis government of the Métis Nation within Alberta. Our commission is committed to doing our part to address the inequity and intergenerational trauma caused by past and current wrongs to support reconciliation with all Indigenous people. Our commission also condemns racism and prejudice in all forms and is committed to being anti-racist. As we start our meeting, allow me to provide a brief overview of the format for those joining us for the first time. The public session of this meeting is being live streamed and a recording will be posted online so we can make it available to those unable to attend. There will be several presentations from the Calgary Police Service, commission members, and commission staff. Commissioners will have the chance to ask questions or make comments after each one. Once we have completed the presentations, we will move to the public participation portion of the meeting. Those who are registered to speak will then be called on by name and will have a chance to either ask a question or make a presentation for our consideration. Following the public participation, we will close the public meeting with the chief and I taking questions from the media. Everyone is welcome to observe the media availability, but only media professionals can participate. To start our meeting, I will ask for the agenda to be approved. The service has advised us that they would like to include sensitive information in their presentation on how they are addressing missing person files. While their written report is publicly available on our website, we've been asked to move their presentation to the in-camera portion of our meeting. Is there a commissioner willing to make that motion? Commissioner Mallon? and Commissioner Nice-Jordan. So move and seconded to move the agenda item for 5.3 missing persons presentation to agenda item 12.3 in camera with this service. Does any other member of the commission wish to request any other amendment to the agenda? Oh, sorry, my apologies. Can we get a vote on that previous motion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Does any member of the commission wish to request any other amendment to the agenda? Hearing no more requests, can I please get a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Thank you, Commissioner Nice-Jordan. And second, Commissioner Dideron. Everyone in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? Thank you. I will now call for declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest from the commissioners. Hearing no declarations, I will now ask for the approval of the consent agenda. For those viewing today's meeting, the consent agenda is a list of routine items and reports that all commissioners agree can be accepted without more discussion on a separate vote. Does any member of the commission wish to request an item on the consent agenda be brought forward for discussion? Hearing none, I declare the consent agenda approved. To open my chair's report, I would like to acknowledge two important topics that are recognized for February. While this month comes to a close, it's important to recognize that February was Black History Month. Canada's history is full of amazing contributions made by Black Canadians, and sadly, these contributions have not always received the recognition that they deserve. As the month concludes, I hope anyone who has not yet taken a moment to learn something new about the experiences and contributions of Black people in our community will do so. Today, we are also recognizing Pink Shirt Day, a day for everyone to reflect on the impact of bullying in our schools, workplaces, and community. We all must do what we can to help build a society where this behavior is not tolerated. I also want to take a moment to wish Muslims in our community a blessed Ramadan, which starts this weekend. To everyone observing the season, Ramadan Mubarak. Lastly, February marked the 140th anniversary of the Calgary Police Service. It is an exciting milestone, and I want to wish the entire service a very happy anniversary. On behalf of our commission and Calgarians, thank you to all the current and former members who have served our community so faithfully throughout the past 140 years. CPS has a proud history, and we are excited to see what the next 140 years will bring. Our commission has had a few highlights over the past month that I would like to share. We started the month by celebrating the winners of the Commissioner's Cup and Galloway Award with the service. The competitions for these awards is a way to recognize police officers that have exceptional firearms proficiency. While this is a skill that we hope these officers will never have to use while protecting our community, it's an important one, and we want to again congratulate the two winners. Our commission also held a half-day strategic planning workshop to set our goals and focuses for the coming year. We have done a lot of work over the past year to improve our governance practices and collaborations with partners at the municipal and provincial levels. We're excited to continue this work to make sure we are delivering the police governance that Calgarians expect. Some of our commissioners and staff were also pleased to attend the service's community outreach event, Experience the Diaspora. We're always thrilled to see CPS members being proactive in building relationships with all segments of our community. Thank you to everyone who put this event together. Commissioner Hansen was honored to attend another recognition event mid-month, where a CPS member was recognized for her contributions to the Youth at Risk Development Program with a King Charles III Coronation Medal. Thank you for letting us be a part of this special presentation. Finally, our two new commissioners had the opportunity to go for ride-alongs that gave them insight into the workload and experience of frontline patrol officers. These ride-alongs are extremely helpful in building our understanding of policing, and I want to thank members that accommodated them. This coming month, our commission is looking forward to the second Calgary Policing Summit on March 7th. The event will bring together over 300 community and government leaders to discuss safety in public spaces. It is important to us that the community have input into the priorities and direction of the service, and this event is one of the key ways we get that input. To close my report, as always, I want to recognize some of the ways that CPS members have delivered on the priorities of Calgarians. The service's online stolen property team opened the month by shutting down a high-end bicycle chop shop where stolen bikes were being prepared for resale. Investigators also successfully identified a suspect and laid charges in a series of storage locker break-ins. Property theft is a major concern for many Calgarians, and these investigations highlight that there's always a great deal of work occurring to address the problem. Investigators also laid charges in several disturbing sexual assault files, including 4 against minors, 1 that occurred in an encampment, and a violent sex assault by a stranger in 2019 that officers have been working to solve ever since. Homicide investigators were also able to lay charges in a fatal Brentwood home invasion that occurred a year ago. These cases can be very complex, and we appreciate all the hard work that goes into holding people accountable. Finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention all the frontline patrol members who worked around the clock in extreme temperatures to make sure that help was there when people needed it. Our commission knows that there's immense pressure on frontline officers, and we will continue working with the province and council to improve staffing levels. We are grateful for your hard work and cannot thank you enough. These are just a handful of examples of what have been accomplished by the members of the Calgary Police Service this past month. On behalf of Calgarians, thank you for all your hard work to keep our community safe. With that, I will close my chair's report. Can I please get a motion to accept this report for information? Thank you, Commissioner Hanson, Commissioner Cornett. Anyone, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. We will now move on to the presentations from the Calgary Police Service, starting with an update on the security planning for the G7 Summit in June. Our commission does not have a role in the operational planning for this event, but we do have a responsibility to ensure that the service has appropriate plans and resources in place to provide policing support that aligns with the community's expectation and maintains policing services across Calgary. I also want to extend a warm welcome to Chief Superintendent Dave Hall from the RCMP. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. And I also want to welcome Troy McLeod from the City of Calgary. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Thanks very much, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair and Commission members. Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you for all of the recognition of all of the events and also for attending and supporting us. As you said, Chair, these are only a handful of events that you were able to mention today. And the presentations that we have here this afternoon only speak to a very small snapshot of the work that all of our members do 24/7. So a huge thanks to all of our members for everything that they do 24/7 every day of every month. And now I will pass it over to Deputy Gill.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, Commission members. I had the honor of presenting the following 3 speakers. As you're aware, the 2025 G7 Summit will be held in Kananaskis in the month of June. Being our proximity to Kananaskis in terms of hotels and amenities, there will be a strong presence in the city of Calgary, many world leaders and delegates from those countries. What we're presenting to you is a third of 5 reports this year to talk about the planning and preparations for the G7 Summit. And to provide the presentation is Chief Superintendent David Hall from the RCMP, which is a lead agency for the G7 Summit, Superintendent Joe Brar, who is the strategic lead for the summit on behalf of the Calgary Police Service, and Director Troy McLeod, who is from the City of Calgary and is the City of Calgary's lead on the G7 Summit. So I'm going to hand it over to the 3 of them for this presentation. Over to you, David.
Thank you. So I'm Chief Superintendent David Hall with the RCMP, from the Alberta RCMP, and I am the Event Security Director for the G7. And I just want to say thanks for the invitation to speak with you today. And I'll give an update on sort of our security planning, but I think it's an important opportunity to highlight the close cooperation that we're receiving from the Calgary Police Service. So, feel free to interrupt with questions as I go along. So, sorry. So just to give some context to the summit, if you're not familiar with what's entailed in a G7 summit. So we are looking at the summit occurring in the Kananaskis area between June 15th and 17th this summer. And so we often talk about the G7 in terms of imagining 7 world leaders coming together to talk, but in fact, it's actually 9 world leaders. So you can see here that obviously Canada is one of those G7 countries, and Canada this year is hosting the presidency of the G7. And they're joined up by France, the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, and Italy. But in addition to the countries, the G7 also incorporates the European Union and the European Commission. So it's actually 9 internationally protected world leaders that will come to the area for the G7 summit. In addition to those world leaders, we do anticipate that Canada will invite additional leaders from what we call outreach countries. So other countries from around the world that Canada may want to showcase as part of their agenda for the summit. And that is a decision by the government of Canada. And I will say we're still waiting on what those invitations may look like. As you can imagine, the summit, it's a large operation in terms of its impact on the area where it's held. And so just to give some context, if we look at past summits, we can anticipate that, we're talking about up to 10,000 separate hotel rooms across the region. So I'll say the summit operation is taking up a lot of available accommodation in Calgary, but also Canmore, Cochrane, and Banff. We anticipate up to 70 different official guests and upwards of 2,000 official delegates as part of the different countries' delegations. And, potentially over 1,000 journalists coming to the area to take a record of the summit. And then, of course, very large security posture in terms of police, both within the city and outside the city. With respect to the structure of the G7 planning, so I'll speak here about the security planning team. I oversee what we call the Integrated Safety and Security Group, and that is a group of all the primary law enforcement and security partners that are conducting planning in an integrated manner to address the needs of the summit. So that group is led by the RCMP because we have a mandated responsibility to secure the international leaders, as well as to secure international major events held in Canada. And we of course are partnering with the Calgary City Police in that endeavor, but we're also joined by the Alberta Sheriffs, Alberta Conservation Officers, and the Canadian Armed Forces. And so leads from those different agencies are all worked throughout our command and planning structure. That group is overseen from a governance perspective by the G7 Executive Steering Committee. And that group is made up of the chief constable level from the participating agencies. So in this case, there's 2 RCMP, the commanding officer of the RCMP in Alberta, as well as the commanding officer of protective policing for the RCMP nationally are on that group, as well as Deputy Chief Gill from the Calgary Police Service participates in that group. And so from a planning perspective, that steering committee is designed to oversee but not direct the planning operations. And so, if we have challenges during planning, that's the group that we would go to. But then during the operational phase of the event, that group will become a crisis cell. So if we encounter significant operational challenges or risks during the event, we can go to that group to seek advice or support from the different agencies. I'll say right now we're certainly still in a planning phase for this event, but eventually we will transition to what we call the operational phase. Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks everyone for having us here to present on the progress of the G7 planning. So just building on what Chief Superintendent Hall had to say, my name is Joe Brar. I'm the CPS Event Director for Security. I'm responsible for leading the strategic and operational command for the CPS. What that means is I'm the CPS representative in the ISSG senior management team. So meeting with Dave and all the other partners to make sure that our planning is integrated and we're working together in cooperation. The CPS role for the G7 summit, it can be divided into three different categories. One is assisting the RCMP with their federal mandate for providing overall event security. Most of the CPS support will be in the city of Calgary, with some outside in the other region as well. We are also the police of jurisdiction for all G7 related calls for service and incidents that take place within the city of Calgary. In addition to that, and most importantly, we're responsible for continuing to provide effective and efficient policing services to the city during the summit. With the CPS being member of the ISG and working closely with our partners over at the City of Calgary G7 corporate office, the interests of the City of Calgary are well represented in operational planning for this event.
Thanks, Joe. So just with respect to the RCMP's role with the summit, as I said, the RCMP is mandated by federal legislation to secure not only the safety of the world leaders that are attending the summit, but the overall safety and security of the event across the region. So it's in order to do that, we've built this integrated safety and security group, which brings the partners together, as I indicated. And this is really something that policing writ large has learned over the course of a number of major events held in Canada over the last decades, that the integration within the planning and the operational command of the event, it's so critical to ensure that it's not just one agency trying to do this on their own. And that's why we've built this integrated team. And as Superintendent Brar indicated, very good co-located office environment here in the city. And certainly the Calgary Police are a critical partner in our planning activities. So just to give a sense of the scope of the operation that we're looking at, you'll see here it's just a map, and it really is just highlighting that the summit will have activities occurring in the city here in Calgary, in the Kananaskis region, and in Banff. So the primary summit or the primary leader activity we will see occurring in the Kananaskis region, and that's where you'll see the bulk of RCMP security operations. However, in the city in Calgary, as Superintendent Brar indicated, the CPS is, of course, the police of jurisdiction here. They have all the same responsibilities that they have on a day-to-day basis to police the city. However, in addition to that, they are supporting the RCMP operations around the dignitaries. And so where that a good example of that is, we do expect that the world leaders will transit into the region through the Calgary City Airport, through YYC. And while the RCMP will manage the security of the individuals, we are supported in that effort by the CPS. And certainly they are fully engaged in all the planning activities that support that. So as I indicated, the RCMP under the Foreign Missions and International Organization Act has the overall safety mandate. So our mission for this event is to ensure the protection of the general public and heads of state participating in the 2025 G7 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta.
Thanks. And the CPS is supporting the RCMP objective and mission while prioritizing safety and security for Calgarians and minimizing disruptions through the daily lives of Calgarians. That's very important to us. We want to make sure that we're able to provide the safety that's needed. At the same time, we're creating the least amount of impact on the daily lives of Calgarians during the summit. There will be disruptions and there will be interruptions. However, our goal is to make those interruptions temporary and minimal. And then anything that we do know in advance, we will communicate directly through our social media channels and other news outlets to make sure that Calgarians stay well informed of any kind of interruptions, and that to allow them to time to plan accordingly.
So as Superintendent Brar indicated, one of one of our main concerns is being able to communicate information around the impacts of the summit and the security measures to the communities that are impacted on this. And so in addition to the integration of our planning teams, our strategic communications teams are also integrated and working together to ensure that as we can and as information becomes available that we can share with the public around the security measures, that we're doing so in a coordinated manner. And so you'll see here on the presentation just some of the efforts that we have started or will be unrolling to communicate with the public. So obviously we have a website. The information on that will be on the last slide, where we're constantly updating that and providing information to the public around security measures. We've established a toll-free line and an email inbox. We will be establishing storefront locations where members of our security teams will be available to members of the public to come in and ask questions around the impact on them. We have started holding regular information sessions. We've started in the Kananaskis region, but providing public updates. And I think it really underscores the value of those sessions, because we held one 2 weeks ago where we identified some of the security measures, but following the meeting, we did receive or hear the concerns of local residents and the government of Alberta on a couple specific things. And once we heard that, we were able to come back, change some of the security measures we'd put in place, and then we've been able to re-communicate those changes and updates to the affected community. And I'll say, I think it was well received that we're demonstrating where we can, we're listening and trying to adapt plans that don't compromise safety and security, but take into account local concerns. And as I said, we're collaborating from a media relations perspective. One of the things that communities are concerned about around the G7 is certainly what are the restrictions and what's going to impact me. And so we have looked at the Kananaskis region, and we've established what we call a controlled access zone. So this is the zone where during the summit, we're not going to allow people into this area unless they've been properly accredited. And so what that means is it needs to be a person who maybe lives in the area or is required to work in the area to support the summit or is part of the summit operation. And so to access this area, people will need to go through a background check, which is organized. The intake process is organized through the Summit Management Office with the Government of Canada. It's supported by the RCMP in terms of the security background checks. But to access this area, you'll need to be properly accredited. And so this is on our website. We've discussed this in the community information sessions in the region. You'll see there's descriptions, but essentially we're establishing vehicle checkpoints along Highway 40 in about an 11-kilometer range north and south of Kananaskis. In that particular area, there's a lot of concern around recreational wilderness activities, camping, hiking, etc. So on our website, this is just an example of where we've identified the impacted trails that enter into that controlled access zone. And you'll see we've described them by name, but one of the challenges we have is we're describing them by the official name, and local residents are looking for kind of the common names. And so we're working through that, but essentially the message is you can access trails in the area until you hit the border of the controlled access zone. That zone will be in place from June 10th until June 18th. And that's just to accommodate the security measures we need to put in place before the leaders arrive. I will point out, it's not in the presentation, but we do also anticipate that there will be aerial restrictions in the area. And we're working with our partners with NAV Canada and Transport Canada to finalize what those restrictions look like. But essentially, you can anticipate a 30 nautical mile circle around Kananaskis from June 14th to the end of day 17th, where air traffic and drone usage will be restricted out of that area unless it's emergency services or part of the summit operations. and that will be communicated as those restrictions are finalized. There will also be a temporary restriction around the Calgary airport during the summit, but the details of that haven't been established yet, and it'll be very short windows during the event. Joe?
Thank you. So as one can imagine, this is the world's largest security event that takes place yearly. As such, the resourcing and funding requirements are significant. So one of the questions that was asked previously is, how is this funded? So the G7 Summit is considered a major international event. So funding for extraordinary and incremental costs are covered through the major international event security cost framework. The budgets and the plans are still being developed, and the total number will be available once the summit is concluded. The CPS is also currently working with our planning team and partners over at in the ISG to finalize equipment and facility requirements to support the summit. And also we are working with Public Safety Canada to establish the budget. The theme of this report was to give a progress report on how planning is going. Like Deputy Chief Gill mentioned, this is number 3 of 6 updates. I can tell you that the ISSG model, the Integrated Safety and Security Group model, was one that's been recommended from previous events of this magnitude to make sure that planning is aligned and well integrated. And I can say that the CPS is fully integrated in planning and is involved in all operational plans that affect Calgary and the area. Our members are working collaboratively with security partners to develop operational plans. The model is working well in that it allows for real-time information sharing and collaboration. It's especially effective when it comes to identifying gaps and risks, which are actively being addressed as planning continues. So that's it for this update. Chief Superintendent Hall and myself are happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Noga?
There we go. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Just a couple of questions. Your comment doesn't seem to be consistent with the slide where it indicates the budget's been approved. Has the budget been approved or not been approved by the RCMP or the Public Safety Canada?
So I can speak to that question in more detail later on in the presentation, but what I can say is the Calgary Police Service has developed operational plans based on our areas of responsibility. Those plans have been translated to budget. That budget has been tentatively approved by our executive and then also endorsed by the RCMP and approved in principle by the Public Safety Canada.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Cornett?
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I was just curious in terms of the communities that you're connecting with around the Kananaskis area. Can you comment on the how you're connecting with the Indigenous communities in the area?
So I'll say that when we look at the summit operation as a whole, it's important to remember that there is a Government of Canada piece that the RCMP and our partners, we don't control that piece. And then there's, of course, the security planning operations. And so as part of that, we are working with the Summit Management Office and have established a working group for local Indigenous communities. We are engaged in particular with the Stoney Nakoda First Nation on trying to address, I'll say, some concerns that they have. And that is an important relationship for us, for the Summit Management Office. And it's very much a work in progress in terms of trying to address some of the outstanding concerns that the community has.
Sorry, and one other question, which may be a little bit early in terms of planning phases. what kind of, sorry, I'm assuming that with G7 comes protests of various different kinds for all different kinds of people and reasons. Do you have any indication of protests within Canada or are you expecting people internationally as well in terms of wanting to make a statement?
So I'll maybe answer that from an RCMP perspective, and then I'll let Superintendent Brar comment on the city. But I do think it's fair to anticipate that there will be a demonstration or protest activity around the G7. You know, I'll say from my perspective, I anticipate a lot of that activity will likely occur in the city. That said, we are planning for the potential for protest activity in Banff, near the Kananaskis region. And as with any high profile event, I think it's fair to say we do anticipate that there will be people or groups who may want to protest against the G7 or against particular world leaders that are attending the G7. And then there may be groups that use the G7 as a vehicle to amplify other issues that they may be protesting about throughout the course of the year. And when it comes to those groups or those issues, it is always the intention of the police to try to ensure that people have the right to express themselves. And we want to encourage that to occur in a lawful, non-criminal manner that is minimally impactful to the surrounding community. And so I will say outside of the city, we are looking at identifying areas where we would like to encourage people to protest, recognizing that we can't always control where that is. And so if protests develop spontaneously in different locations, we'll work with the organizers to the best of our abilities to encourage them to do it in a place that's lawful and safe. And, you know, failing that, I'd say the police approach to public order is we police behavior and not beliefs. So if a protest starts to become illegal or is blocking critical infrastructure or blockading a highway, you know, we'll have to deal with that in a different way than a group that approaches us to ask for our help to facilitate safe and lawful protest.
Thank you. So the protest environment in Calgary is well known to the commission, and we anticipate there will be demonstrations. The world is a much different place than it was in 2002 and 2025. So being a diverse city, geopolitical events around the world are having a local impact. So we expect local groups to come out and demonstrate. Our history here has been a majority of those demonstrations are lawful, peaceful, and safe, and we anticipate the same. At the same time, we are also aware that there may be disruptors and people that don't want to demonstrate lawfully. So we have a robust public order plan that will deal with that. But our first approach, like the Chief Superintendent Hall mentioned, would be to work with the community to ensure that those protests are just lawful, peaceful, and safe.
Commissioner Nice-Jordan.
Thanks. You alluded to the events within Calgary as being primarily located around the airport, but are there any meetings or other specific events that would be in Calgary that are separate from Kananaskis that would require an increased presence from that perspective?
So as I said earlier, like one of the issues, so there's certainly the airport, and there will be the movement of the dignitaries from the airport. So that I think will come with, as Superintendent Brar mentioned, some temporary disruptions. In terms of leader meetings, there are no leader meetings scheduled in the city that we're aware of at this time. That said, you know, agendas and schedules can change. You know, when I talked about the accommodation, I'll say it's a challenge across the region to find enough space for all of the delegations. So I do anticipate that different countries will take up space in the city for accommodations. And if that means that there's internationally protected persons other than the world, like the G7 leaders that are in the city, that will come with some degree of security that we'll have to put in place for those folks. But again, I think that I'll just say that a lot of that depends on the eventual decisions by the federal government on who's invited and who the outreach countries are and how many. But again, that's just something we will plan for, and we'll work with our partners with the city to ensure that, we're able to carry out our security mission, but do so in a manner that is as minimally impactful on the city as possible. Sorry, did that answer your question?
Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Two questions. One, again, on accommodations. I'm sure you're aware of the different accommodations in Calgary, Canmore, Banff, and Kananaskis. With regards to short-term rentals and others, Airbnbs, do you have any risk assessment about Airbnb type of accommodations?
Just so you're asking if we've done a risk assessment on Airbnb style accommodations for the planning and like the government folks?
I'll explain what's out. I'm one of the city councilors here, so thank you.
Yeah. So what I think I can say to accommodations is, from a government of Canada perspective, we are working collectively to identify accommodation needs across all the participating agencies. So that has in turn led to public procurement processes that have identified available accommodations and I guess vendors or who are interested in bidding on those contracts. And that has then led to a working group that has identified the accommodations that are necessary for whether it's the security needs or the summit operations needs. But then from a accommodations for all the people that come with the other delegations, that's a issue for them. Canada doesn't identify those accommodations for them. So I'm not sure that we've had to go to the level of looking at Airbnb for those accommodations, because we're looking at for like large blocks of accommodations.
Okay. Yeah. The second question, and just to Joe, thank you. The previous conversation we had was with regards to sufficient workforce for CPS, and I recognize that we're procuring resources from Edmonton and other cities. Are we fully staffed now? Have we got the resources you need to do it?
So what I can say is that we've identified our areas of responsibility, both as a police of jurisdiction and our CMP security partner. We've built plans on that. And as the plans are refined, we're starting to determine how many, where, for how long. So I would say at this point, I have no concerns about us being able to staff the responsibilities while maintaining effective and efficient policing services. And along with other conversations we've had about making sure that there's not officer burnout, because we're getting set for a summer of many events. So we have reached out to mutual aid partners. I'm just not in a position right now because we're working on agreements to discuss who those partners are. But perhaps later on in the meeting, we could have a further conversation on that. Thank you.
I just had a couple of questions, so thanks for your presentation. The first question I had was you showed a diagram that showed the RCMP on one side and CPS on the other, and then conservation officers and Alberta sheriffs and my apologies, a third arm as well. What's the reporting for those bodies that were at the bottom? Do they report in directly to the RCMP or do they report into CPS?
Yeah, so that slide was, it was showing who our partners are within that integrated environment. And so I think it's important to distinguish the planning phase versus the operational phase, because once we go into the operational phase, different agencies or different people within, depending on their position within the different command centers, will have different layers of authority that they can make decisions on. So when that slide came up, the intent there is to show, like, Joe and I work together on our mutual responsibilities. Then within the governance structure, we have what we call the senior management team. And so the senior person from, it's the Canadian Forces, the sheriffs, conservation, Calgary, and the RCMP, we meet weekly to talk about the different areas that we're collectively responsible for. And so it's not necessarily a true reporting relationship. That said, within the ISSG, we have multiple pillars. So we have an operations pillar, for example, but under that pillar, we break it out into, there's someone in charge of a traffic plan. So the traffic plan, the RCMP will have a lead on that, but Calgary will also have a lead, and they're working together, and frankly with the sheriffs as well on traffic. We'll have a motorcade person. We'll have people in charge of the different sites. And so those areas that are occurring, like a hotel in Calgary, for instance, there'll be an RCMP lead who's responsible for the site and any dignitaries that are there. But then equally, there's a lead Calgary rep who is providing their input around what policing needs to occur around that site.
Thank you for that. And the other question I had was around the storefront locations. I appreciate the fact that you're doing outreach. I think that's fantastic, actually. The storefront locations, will you have those in Calgary as well? And what's the timing of those?
I think I'll answer that by saying it's all in development. And so our comms team, like, collectively is working on identifying where those locations can be and when the best time to open them is. And so certainly I will say we're in our early stages of the public outreach right now. So we're working on it.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding G7? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Chief Superintendent Hall and Superintendent Burr. We appreciate the presentation. The next presentation on our agenda is a report on the processing times for police information checks and the work underway to provide Calgarians with timely access to those background checks. Please go ahead with the presentation.
Superintendent Daly, I'll flip it, or sorry, Deputy Chief Daly, I'll flip it to you. Sorry.
Just me, I get to play the new person card for another commission. This is in response to the notice of motion, as mentioned, Chair. Thank you very much. We have a team online that's prepared the report and here to speak to it today. I won't go over and elaborate on any of the points. We'll just turn it over to, we're going to review the executive summary for those who didn't have access to the report, who are listening online or in the room. So I'll turn it over. Online, we have Executive Director Melanie Onsescu, Director Lance Jarman, and Supervisor Sharon Metzler. So I'll turn it over to them for a quick review and then questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Just confirming that you can hear me.
My apologies. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So just in response to the notice of motion, which was to have the Calgary Police Service provide an update by February of 2025 on the police information check service staffing and what impact, if any, has transitioning to a new vendor in June of 2023 had on processing times. So transitioning to a new vendor in June of 2023 resulted in several impacts, including, but not limited to, staffing levels, process changes, and processing times. Since then, there has been a significant change management period for staff to familiarize themselves with the new solution, with the intent to become more efficient and effective at new ways of doing business. The team also dealt with a significant backlog due to the transition, along with immense pressure from the public requiring support around the changes. Now, approximately 18 months post-launch, processing times have stabilized with few exceptions, including seasonal peak times that are further highlighted in the report. And I welcome any questions.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions? Commissioner Wyness, and then Commissioner Nyson Jordan and Commissioner Wong.
Thanks. So so there's longer delays depending on volumes, but I'm getting emails from the community who are going back to school are finding they were told it was a 3-month delay. So yeah, that's the emails I have. So I'm just kind of curious, is there a way for you to anticipate and maybe open up bandwidth when constituents are reaching out to counselors saying the response they're getting is 3-month wait time for school board requirements? And so are you, like, your data says it doesn't really seem to be reflective here, but the experience of citizens is saying that. So curious on that.
Well, we don't have any indication that folks are experiencing a 3-month wait. We do see an influx of applications, you know, when kids are back at school and parents are seeking to get the police information checks for the purposes of, you know, participating in field trips and things like that. But our KPIs are on average 10 to 12 days, and we do see those grow in peak times. But we are not in a position to anticipate, other than where we see that flux in sort of early September in through the first few months of the fall. But we're not in a position where we could add staff just to support that work. And the online and the in-person are both options in terms of people processing their applications. But unless someone is delayed in downloading their police information check from the online portal, that would be the only time that there would be a delay, but it would be the responsibility of the applicant to download their PIC check.
Yeah, when we changed the system, there was definitely issues with the downloading and the communication from the applicant. Definitely had feedback on that one as well. But so if we were to continue to see trends where more people were told it was like 3-month waits, we would just have to hire more staff to actually mitigate that wait time?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, certainly if we, pardon me, if we were seeing a 3-month delay, we post our KPIs. So if the turnaround time, you know, remains at 10 to 12, we post that online and we tell folks once their application is received, we give them, you know, please anticipate, you know, receiving back your report in, you know, approximately 10 to 12 days. But if that timeline changes, then we post that online and advise them when we respond to their application.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Commissioner Nyson Jordan.
Thanks. This is an issue that's near and dear to the heart of many Calgarians. So I really am interested in, with the changeover to the new system, were there any improvements? I know the transition was problematic, but I would have hoped that in the transition or changing to the new system, that things would have been better, faster, technologically better and easier. And I'm not hearing it from the people that are communicating with me. So I'm wondering whether or not whether there's some way to deal with the company or our IT people to get some improvement there. And then the other comment in the report that I wanted to just highlight was a couple of things, the trend in complexity. And there was you alluded to increasing complexity. And I'm wondering if that can be identified early enough in the front so that that particular individual who is requesting that knows that their application may be more complex. And so that you can be a little bit more specific about their time to get their check done. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to do my best to answer all your questions. So in relation to giving someone the heads up that there may be complexity to their file, without completing all the checks, we're not going to have that information. So it's not like a pre-screening before we move forward with the check. So we wouldn't know that it becomes complex until the PIC check has begun. And then in terms of technology and ease, I'm not sure. Can I get you to clarify that question, please?
I'm just hoping that in a move to online checks and the move to the new vendor, that the whole process could have been faster, and I'm not hearing that.
So 10 to 12 days turnaround time is, in our opinion, is quite a quick turnaround. Edmonton Police posts, I believe it's 30 days for their response on a police information check. But that being said, the technology is the receiving of the application, but it is still the team within police information check that has to do all the background checks. So it is not the vendor, like the vendor provides the information, but it's the team of folks that do all the work and the backgrounding to complete the report. So that unfortunately is a laborsome task. And so that would be difficult to speed up. Perhaps maybe modern technology down the road would change that. But right now, that's not something that we can amend. And did I answer all your questions? I apologize.
Yeah, so in terms of complexity, so do you have, because some people will apply and require their check when they've already gone through some other police checks in other jurisdictions for within a certain time period. Do you have good cooperation with other police check services that allows you to mitigate some of that complexity?
So, sorry, we have an Alberta Association Chiefs of Police PIC committee that obviously is about Alberta. So we have communication amongst ourselves in terms of PIC themselves, but each agency has their own process in terms of how they do checks within their jurisdiction. So for instance, if we have a new citizen to Calgary, but perhaps they came from Grand Prairie would have to do a check that would be relevant to their time that they were in Grand Prairie, and we don't have access to their databases in order to do that check. So the RCMP has their own system, Edmonton Police have their own system. So it would just be, the process is unfortunately for the applicant to have those checks completed for the areas that they resided in.
Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify the two steps. One is the application process, and the second is the work that a CPS does. The cumulative time from start to end, did you say that's within 10 days or is 10 days as one segment of the process?
Once they've applied, it's 10 days processing.
So they get a response within 10 days?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cornett.
I've watched this sort of conversation go for a little while now, and it's really complicated, and I understand all the complexity behind the scenes. I also can see both sides of the argument where you don't want to be skipping any steps because heaven forbid something goes sideways and you don't get that accurate check, and then you're in trouble for, something happening. So I totally understand. I've also been on the other side waiting for a check, and it is frustrating. So I guess the one comment, and it's just a comment just to think about, is can there, I'm looking at Director Nunn, can there be a little bit more communication about the fact that maybe it's not a minimum and you expect always 10 days. Maybe you can do some communications that let people know it's going to be 2 weeks. And so put your expectations on 2 weeks. And if you know your kids are going to start at school, get the schools to give out the applications to get the check done 2 weeks instead of 1 week in advance of a field trip or something. I mean, I know I'm asking for, the best case scenario, but I think that it's got to be both trying to improve the process, which I totally understand, And there's so many things that the service needs to do to keep all of the communities safe and everybody understanding where everybody's at. On the other hand, managing the expectations is as important in terms of trying to ensure the public knows that maybe you don't say it's, 10 days and we're aiming for 8. Maybe you say it's going to be 2 weeks and try and put the steps in place so people can do the planning in advance. So I'll just leave that as a thought. Thanks.
I can grab that. Michael, Mel, you can add, so the PIC team is collaborating with Public Affairs and Media Relations Unit now to address those exact challenges. So thanks for that question and bringing up that point. The goal is to help report and effectively communicate the wait times and the process changes. And as you've noted, if you're coming out from school or different sports seasons, when that sports season's coming, we also have to have work to do, or people in community associations have work to do with the associations that allow them to be identified and provided those letters to bring in advance as well. So that can be communicated through our social media platforms as well, but that is ongoing. And there'll be more information about the online option as well that helps with the accessibility for some to come into the buildings and do that as well. So we'll be putting out the media campaign on that. And I don't know, Mel, if you have anything to add with that, but.
Thanks, Deputy. And I'll just add one more thing. We do, obviously do our best to engage with our partners and make sure. And one of the things that we do just prior to the start of the school year is we engage the school boards and just ensure that the messaging is going out, again, refreshing the information about, the link to the online application process or attending at West Wind. So because school boards, we see that the biggest influx at the start of the school year. So, and I know the schools do messaging to the parents, students at the beginning of the school year, just to remind people to make sure that their PICs are valid for the purposes of participating in school events.
And if I can just add, we are making sure that the communications are available in different languages as well, appreciating that that has been a barrier for people in the past. So we're making sure that we do that.
Commissioner Noga.
Thank you. So I wasn't here in June of 2023. It'll be almost 2 years now. Has there been any process improvements you've identified along the way?
I think probably the biggest efficiency that we have seen is the movement from in-person to online. It's just been, for us, it's been a relatively smooth transition. We are hoping to continue to increase our numbers it sits at about 75% online. Edmonton Police in comparison sits 80 to 90% online. And they not benefited, but their transition to this vendor and moving to an online platform came during COVID. So obviously the opportunity for online was almost a limited option in terms of attending in person versus online. So we're pleased with where we're at in terms of the progress we have made. And we work with the vendor when there's any opportunities for feedback or improvements, but there's been, nothing significant that I could share in terms of adjustments we've made.
Okay, thank you. So I would agree online is far more efficient and effective, but within the actual processing of these applications, have you identified any changes in your process that you need to make along the way? So said differently, have you taken an old inefficient process and just recapitalized it in a new box, as opposed to stepping back to understand how you can improve the process and make it more efficient along the way?
Apologies, just looking to my friends in the room. So we do, as just part of our business, always look to create efficiencies in the way that we do our work. And so that's something that's ongoing, and it's not something that has only occurred since we changed to this vendor. PIC has always looked to make improvements in the way that we do business. And so it's an ongoing thing. It's not a just because of, it's an ongoing thing that we look at.
Okay, maybe we can take that offline and just have some further conversation about process improvement overall.
Certainly.
Commissioner Noga, we'll come back, but we'll need to make a motion for that. But I'll continue with the questions first. Commissioner Hanson.
Hi, it's not really a question as much as it maybe is about working with, I come from nonprofit, and when we hire somebody, no matter when their check was done, they have to get a new one when they come in. But with the schools, is it in any way to bring it to the schools and say, why don't you ask your people at the end of June, if you're going to be involved with the school in September, to get your check, go out and actually get them to put their checks in over the summer in order so that they're ready for the beginning. I think it's maybe a piece of teaching the community how to be proactive.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and perhaps that we can take a look at working with Michael Nunn and his team, and maybe sort of get early messaging out, like you said, at the end of the school year or something like that. But that's certainly something that we can look at for sure.
I just had a quick question. Can you clarify, can someone still walk into a district office or front counter and apply for a check? Or is it online only?
No, they can attend in person to West Winds, so up at our headquarters here, and the front counter staff are able to assist them there, and then online. Those are the two options.
So only at West Winds, you're saying?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Commissioner Noga, do you have that motion ready, or Amber?
Can we take it offline? And maybe just have it as part of in-camera?
We could do that. We could take it into in-camera and discuss it at that point. Sure.
So the motion would be that Commissioner Noga requests to add an in-camera discussion at agenda item 12.4 for discussion.
Okay.
Of agenda item 5.2.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Noga, seconded by Commissioner Nyson-Jordan. Is anyone opposed to that? Okay, we will do that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Deputy Chief Daly and your team, for that. We appreciate it. And we appreciate the fact that you brought that back with more information and clarification. Thank you. We'll move on now to the next presentation on our agenda, which is on missing persons investigations. But that has actually been moved to our in-camera portion, so I'll leave that. Therefore, the next presentation on our agenda is a report on the results of the 2024 annual policing plan. Each year, the service works with our commission to develop policing priorities and goals. They then report to us and the public on their progress towards these goals. We're excited to hear what has been accomplished this year so far. Please go ahead with the presentation.
Thanks very much, Chair. Deputy Chief Chad Tawfik and his team is going to give that presentation.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Chair. Introducing Acting Director Amory Hamilton Henry and Business Strategist Jody Jimenez, who will walk through the highlights of the 2024 annual policing plan, which walks through what we've set out to do and what the results were. We'll cover the high points, and then we can go to questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. I don't have anything else to say. I'll just hand over to Jody. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. The 2024 year-end report is presented as a comprehensive update on the priorities outlined in the 2024 annual policing plan. The plan encompasses 4 focus areas, 9 outcomes, 15 goals, and 42 performance measures aligned with the service's corporate goals and key performance indicators. It also supported the 5 long-term goals identified in the CPS strategy and the 12 commitments outlined in the 2023 to 2026 service plan and budgets. Of the 42 performance measures tracked in 2024, CPS achieved its targets for 17 measures, being 40.5%, came close for 14, 33.3%, and fell short for 11, 26.2%. The unmet KPIs were mainly the one-time measures. Despite these challenges, the year saw numerous notable achievements across the focus areas. Within our people, enhanced career development programs and expanded trauma-informed education. Within our diversity, strengthened Indigenous and equity-focusing engagement, highlighted by the adoption of the Global Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging tool and hosting the first Inclusion Summit. Within our community, achieved significant reductions in shootings and disorder calls while expanding youth intervention initiatives. And finally, within our performance, securing funding for initiatives targeting gun violence and gang activity, increased recruitment, and improved public access to crime data. These accomplishments reflect our ongoing commitment to innovation, accountability, and community safety, positioning the service to address evolving challenges while building trust and fostering collaboration. Back to the Commission for any comments, questions on the 2024 year-end annual policing plan.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, please, or comments? No? We have seen it in committee a few times over the last couple of weeks, so I think you got all our questions at that time. Actually, there is one. Commissioner Mallon?
Just a quick comment for the single measures, which were largely the employee survey, I believe. Will there be any kind of specific strategizing around some other way to communicate with employees around whatever it is that they're not yet satisfied with?
Thanks, Commissioner Mellon. So, I think I'm going to try to respond to your question. If I miss it, please let me know. So much more effective in I think recent CPS context is things like the town halls that have been occurring. So the chief held one in February. There was one held. There have been a number of town halls, both at the bureau level and at the whole service level, which have been engaging and which have allowed people, and there has been very frank discussion at these, at these meetings to ask difficult questions, to voice their concerns, to receive responses. Where we're not able to respond in the moment, we do commit to and follow up on this commitment, provide responses down the road. I personally have found that more effective than the lack of detail and context that we get from a survey question. We're essentially trying to read between the lines when we're looking at a survey result without the comments attached. So we don't see what individual members said. We only see an aggregate number, and we're essentially guessing at what that means. In addition to the town halls, we as leaders within the service have routine engagement with our teams. The localized engagement and pathways to engagement that's going to be reported on quite extensively next month will give you a whole bunch of interesting insights into the challenges that were observed across the service and the activities that are being undertaken to deal with them. Last comment I'll make is I was equally concerned about the use of the survey as a KPI for us. I felt like there's more effective measures. This is my belief. And so you will see in the 2025 APP, the KPIs or the, do I have the right language? The KPIs, we shifted them, in my opinion, to be more valuable and to be tracking things that we can be more insightful about. So I hope that helped in some measure.
Yes, thank you. I really was looking for, what are we dropping? What are we going to try kind of thing? Like, for example, the one on, we didn't meet 79%, I think, on people feeling satisfied with wellness. So perhaps the KPI is better to measure the people using those services in terms of what's happening or what should happen, or that's really what I was getting at. Like, let's not just do the same things we did last year and hope that it changes.
I feel exactly
Yeah.
the same way. You will see a marked difference in what we're looking at for 2025.
Great.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nice and Jordan.
Thanks. I'm going to follow along with this. Most of these are not true KPIs, and we need a better look at that. I do know that there was an Auditor General report on the Vancouver Police that also identified that their KPIs were not appropriate. And so I'm wondering whether or not there may be some benefit in linking with some of other police forces or police services to get better key performance indicators. And what have we done to kind of foster that relationship?
Thanks for the comment, Commissioner. I agree. Like, I think it's not just one measure that sums everything up for how we're performing in some of these things. And so it's probably a number of them or more than one. And to your point, or to the point raised, it depends what you're trying to get to the root of to determine what the KPI should be. So we can collaborate. And in fact, we have an AACP subcommittee that looks at research and evaluation. I'll table that with them as well.
Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Chair. Under the our community, foster communities, community safety and well-being, and there's the one refers to identify, respond, investigate trends in crime, social disorder. It indicates it's green. And in the narrative up above, it makes a reference to, let me just find it here. Disorder calls in public spaces dropped by 6%. My question here is, if we count the number of incidences, certainly the numbers will go down. But do we correlate the number of incidences to the severity of the types of calls? So we'd actually see, numbers may go down, but the actual incidents are more serious or engaging in nature. And the reason I say that, I just attended an executive meeting downtown building owner, had six tenants read me out, quite frankly, about the level of safety, security, and LRT stations. So do we measure severity in addition to incidences?
There is severity in and around crime severity index. So if there's an occurrence report, it gets classified based on the type of crime that occurred. So from a crime perspective, it's factored in that way. So our CSI, our crime severity index, both violent and property, we watch that from a CPS perspective, and we can benchmark across other organizations. For social disorder and those types of activities, it's not that it has a weighting like crime necessarily would, but it's the qualitative feedback that we get that is important around that. So I think the town halls that we have, and that feedback is really critical to understand, how significant are the ones that are happening, because that's just one measure, is the number of incidents. If it's dropping, that's a good thing. It's positive for us, but the qualitative side is equally important.
Yeah. Okay. Again, like I said, the concern, of course, is people not feeling safe still, regardless of the numbers coming down. They still don't feel safe coming in downtown, especially on the LRT stations. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? No. I want to thank you for all your work that you've done with this. I know that we've asked many questions throughout the year, and you've taken those into account and made changes. So thank you very much. Ms. Jimenez and Dr. Henry, thank you. Yeah, that's it. The next items are on our agenda are 2 reports on crime trends. Excuse me. The first report covers what the investigative areas of the service are working to address. And the second report covers the trends frontline officers are addressing. Commissioners will get a chance to ask questions about both reports together after the verbal presentations. Please go ahead.
Thanks very much, Chair. We'll start with the Acting Deputy Chief, Jeff Bell, and then we'll move over to Deputy Chief Raj Gill.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Chair. February 22nd marked Human Trafficking Awareness Day. And why I mention that is the Calgary Police, in partnership with Alert, are really trying to tackle this on three fronts. We're looking at it from an education component, an enforcement component, and also a trauma-informed kind of centric model when we're dealing with the victims of this. This past week, actually, at Calgary Police Service Westwoods headquarters, we hosted the International Association of Human Traffickers. Why we did that is because we felt that trafficking has no boundaries whatsoever, and as a result, we wanted the investigators from basically worldwide to have that ability to communicate, and so that we can knock down some of those barriers and form those relationships needed to communicate that across the service. That education component then can be taken out to our members in the service, and as a result of that, they have heightened awareness of it, and we are alive to what's happening. On a second front, from the enforcement side of things, Operation Coven is done on a monthly basis with Alert, and what that does is, from a standpoint, we set up calls to victims in this service, and we look for key indicators in the websites that are often used. Everything from the language are indicators to us, and we reach out to them and we set up meetings with them, and then we covertly approach them in an effort to provide them an opportunity to assist to get out of that lifestyle with assistance. We do that again from a trauma-informed approach, and we provide them with access to NGOs that are wraparound support that can, in an effort to get them out of that lifestyle. Very tough to do because it's they've been distanced, they're often separated from their family, they're without money, and we try to provide that, but it often takes numerous attempts throughout the year. In the past year, we've been successful with 58 of those where we've actually helped bring people out of human trafficking in and around Calgary 58 times. Something else that Calgary Police has done is in the last 6 months, we've prioritized an Indigenous liaison for this position. We recognize this is a vulnerability with our Indigenous communities, and we wanted to ensure that we had an Indigenous liaison for that present in an Alert position that we provided from the Calgary Police Service. I've personally been present for Operation Coven. It is life-changing. It's surprising. We don't anticipate that this is happening in and around Calgary, but it does happen in both Calgary, Southern Alberta, Canada, and we have to be alive to it. And so that's why we've taken the time to focus on that today. The second part of my report that I'd like to talk about is around auto theft. Auto theft has long been a problem both in Alberta, Calgary, Alberta, and Canada. And we've looked at ways to tackle that. We have two teams in Calgary, both an auto theft team that focuses more so on the offender and members that have a high recidivism rate of crime. And the second component is with our Alert partners, again, that actually look at the larger scale organized crime theft of vehicles. Auto theft team in Calgary Centric itself focuses on the person because the vehicles are often used as a mechanism for other crimes. And we know that by targeting the offender, we're actually dealing with a lot of crimes that affect people in and around Calgary. Only recently, we started to see the trends from out east, Eastern Canada that are coming into Alberta, where the high-end vehicles are being stolen and shipped out of Alberta worldwide. And so we're tackling that with our partners in that. Recently, 2 weeks ago, we also hosted auto theft conference in Calgary, where we brought in investigators from both Alberta and Saskatchewan, approximately 100 of them, where we brought experts from around North America to talk about that and again to come with a collaborative approach to tackling these issues. At this time, I'm open to any questions or feedback.
Thank you for that. And thanks for highlighting those two very important areas that are affecting Calgarians on a pretty regular basis. Oh, you know what? Actually, my mistake. We were going to do another report and then we'll go to questions. So I apologize.
Thanks, Chair. For the Bureau of Community Policing, you have already received the monthly report, which has our crime data, 2 traffic reports, and the narrative document, which highlights the great work of our community engagement response teams, the referrals our members make to the Navigation Center, and our collaborative work with the Alberta Sheriffs on Stoney Trail. For the next few minutes, I'd like to focus on one specific area and highlight the work that we're doing around social disorder, which you may have read about in the news over the last several days. Commencing last week on February 17th, CPS embarked on a concentrated police operation to enhance public safety in and around downtown in the core and other data-led hotspot areas of social service or social disorder and crime across our city. Operation includes a strong focus on illicit drugs offenses and public spaces and on transit. What we're doing is we're executing a high-profile, sustained, and integrated operation to address fentanyl trafficking use and associated crime and disorder in sensitive and hotspot locations in Calgary. We will deploy strategically with our partners using both covert and overt resources to combine engagement, intervention, enforcement, diversion, and referrals to wellness and recovery services. As you know, CPS enjoys a close working relationship with our City of Calgary partners in transit and bylaw, corporate security, and C911. While this partnership has been ongoing and this operation was planned in advance, it has certainly been expedited to align with the request we received from the province on February 14th for enhanced collaboration between community peace officers and police officers. In this operation, the CPS Community Engagement Response Team will partner with members of the City of Calgary peace officers, specifically bylaw officers and transit officers to create a truly integrated response. These teams will be operationally deployed under the direction and command of the Calgary Police Service. Additional to these teams, the other CPS teams that will be deployed will be our community resource officers, our downtown street enforcement engagement team, our district operation teams, drug undercover street teams, our mounted unit air services, and our violent crime suppression team. Our goal is to strengthen our city together for a safer Calgary. Teams are being deployed and directed on a daily basis in accordance with a CPS operational plan that encompasses a broader strategy to address crime and social disorder. Our primary goal is to create an area where individuals who are demonstrating unsafe behavior or behavior that leads people to feel unsafe are addressed through enforcement, strategic patrols, and compassionate supports. This is our second week of this deployment. Already we're starting to see results, and we are doing a weekly reporting on our results, so we'll have a better idea of how we're succeeding as the weeks go by. What it practically looks like in a daily operation is we do 2 briefings, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, with our transit officers, with our bylaw officers, and they're strategically deployed in partnership with the Calgary Police Service members across downtown, across social disorder hotspots, on transit, and in locations where we know we have high volumes of disorder as led by the data we collect on a daily basis through crime reporting and calls for service. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that come out from my report in addition to Deputy Bell's presentation.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Brar. Commissioner Dideron.
This is for Deputy Bell. Do you have the breakdown for the auto theft that were used in crime versus the one that are not used in any crime for Calgary?
Unfortunately, I don't, because again, it's a moving target. What it can provide you is information on recidivism rate, where we studied in 2024, we studied the known captures, as in known arrests, and we found that 51% of them had some form of judicial release order that they were out on when they were caught in a stolen vehicle.
Okay. And where I asked the question is, like historically, we hear that most of the auto theft in Calgary are using for other crimes. But if that situation is changing now, that means the policing have to change with the crime but if you don't have the breakdown, I'm just wondering how you are changing with the situation.
For sure. Fair question. I think it's why we don't have the information is if we recover a stolen vehicle without a person in it, we don't know what the vehicle was or was not used for. And so it's an unknown to us. But I would say that often speaking, and again, I don't have the stats, we could achieve this. Often the vehicles where people are caught in it, the vehicle is related with drugs, guns, or some form of crime. And that is what the vehicle has been used for. Very, very rare is it used just as a means of transportation from point A to point B. Does that answer your question?
Commissioner Wyness? No, okay, sorry. Commissioner Cornett.
This question's with respect to human trafficking. I think it's great work and thank you very much for the update on that. I had two questions. One is, what is the trend on the numbers of human trafficking? Is it going up or down? I mean, I expect like everything in this world is getting worse, but I was just curious, is it like a severe incline and it does, is there seasonality? And the second part to that question is, there's a bullet in there that talks about Calgary as being a hub for this activity. Do you have any ideas as to why that is across Canada? Calgary would be a hub? So 2 questions. Thanks.
Sure. Both great questions. Currently, I would say the trending is going upwards. And I think that's in part by number one, awareness to it. But I actually think that number one is linked with your second question as to the why Calgary is the hub. When we look at Calgary, it is a strong economic climate. And when we talk with the investigators, and for example, in both Quebec and Ontario and whatnot, the fees that are charged in Alberta, specifically Calgary, are quite a bit higher for the same things that are being charged in different cities. And so that supply and demand model, they can make a lot more money off that. There's disposable income in Calgary is really what it comes down to, root cause in that. There's an international airport that also a component of that. And that is actually ironically where we get a lot of information from, intelligence from, when they come in that way. And so I think the why has to do with economics.
Interesting. Thank you.
Commissioner Tyson-Jordan.
I think mine's a simple question. You alluded to that auto theft was going up, and yet on the Bureau of Community Policing, it shows vehicle theft going down. So is one just stuff that's taken from the vehicle, or why are those 2 graphs different?
So historically, we've looked at auto theft just as like in a Calgary picture. And I think when I was speaking about that, I think I was speaking more so on a Canadian focus. In Calgary, we've been focused on the prolific offender component of the auto theft. There's the recidivism rates, the targeted offenders who are doing this. I would say that organized crime is influencing the higher end vehicles, and that's what we're seeing the trend upwards in. It's a problem both in Eastern Canada and in Alberta, because they're taking these vehicles and they're shipping them where they can sell them, and that's what we're seeing the increase in.
So then you're saying, I mean, this is a fairly dramatic vehicle theft graph that's gone from 595 in 2018 to 313. That's 50% of what it was 5-6 years ago. And you're saying that there's a subset that's going on. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is that my understanding? Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy Chief Gill, thank you for the update on community planning downtown. You mentioned this was in place the last couple of weeks. Have we done any sort of public relations campaign to let people know about the combine of our peace officers together with CPS? And secondly, what would be the desired or expected outcomes that they can expect? Because again, their perception of what safety is, needs to be aligned with what you're able to deliver.
So great questions, Counselor. For your first one, there will be a social media campaign that under Director Nunn's shop, Superintendent Boyd is leading this operation, and assigned to him is one of media strategists from Director Nunn's shop. So we have probably soft launched the social media campaign, but it will increase significantly over the next little while. As I said, we had initially planned this a couple months ago to start at the first part of March, which is next week. With the letter from the province, we expedited. So we had a soft launch last week. This is the first week of full deployment. So our stat gathering and our social media campaign will go hand in hand as we start gathering that. Your second question is a bit more of a nuanced, difficult question, to be honest. I think we know that with the implementation of the CERT teams, we have better tracking and we have better work that we're doing with our unhoused, our members of our community that are having issues with mental health and addiction. And the collaborative work that's going on with our community partners in terms of whether it's a drop-in center, whether it's Alpha House and partner agencies. But we know there's still work to do, as you know, when you walk through Stephen Ave or some of the other areas, that we still have some work to do in terms of addressing the unhoused population that we have. But we also have work to do in terms of how we address the perceptions of safety. So one thing is data. The other one is how our citizens feel when they're in those areas. So we have a number of initiatives working on in that downtown core to hopefully come up with ways where we can address, move that barometer a bit on perceptions of safety. So we know the actual data, but then there's the perception of safety that we really need to work on. And to me, that is definitely a harder piece to it.
I think for the last part, I mean, you're right. Establishing numeric targets are something that people can see by the counts, but establishing the difference between what people observe and what your target in terms of outcome is, if they don't know what the target outcome is, then their perception could be anywhere. And so that's the important part that I think people need to understand. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, Councillor, to that point, and I think that's what we're doing better as a service. And I think you've seen the work, you've seen Kay Choi from the city and Superintendent O'Brien present here previously about the collaborative work that the joint management team between Calgary Police Service and the city, with the advent of the CERT teams last year and the high system users, our data management is getting better and better. And from that, it focuses our efforts in terms of directing our operations, directing those hotspots, and to address what we see in both what citizens are reporting. And I think collaboratively, when we have all that stuff, we can actually address the perceptions of safety as well that citizens feel.
I had a couple of questions. Sorry, just to clarify, Deputy Chief Brewer, will these results be published then? Is that the plan with the comms team? Is that as you go through that you'll share these results on a regular basis so that the community and government officials can see these?
Good question in the sense of sharing. If you're asking, are we going to share the public through social media or are we going to have regular reporting? We will have regular reporting that we'll present here through the commission. And then we're also looking at how we can have an external website like we do for our crime data and have that information readily available there. So that is also one of the outcomes for our town hall we held on early June, is as opposed to create a lot of literature, paper literature now that could be out of date 2 months from now, 3 months from now, we'll have a smaller piece of written literature, but then direct people to our website where that information is updated on a regular basis. In terms of our enforcement efforts and our activities that we're doing to address all the behaviors that we're seeing, whether it's enforcement, education, engagement sessions.
Okay. I think this is another example of where the service is doing great work in so many areas, but you're not really good at tooting your own horn. So how do we get this information out a little bit more about the integrated pieces and the work that you're doing with partners so that not the community knows, but also government officials know what's happening in the city? And so I understand that sometimes you can't share complete public information, but I'm sure Director Nunn has some ideas on how to get this out a little bit more.
I was just going to say I'm probably going to go over to the horn tutor right over there to answer that.
Yeah, so we do have a strategist that's assigned to this, just knowing how important this is to the public, obviously the province and the city and commission. So we have a campaign that launched today. It's a bit of a soft launch, so it started on social media called Safer Calgary, and we'll be using that as a brand to try and package up all of the work that we're doing in this space, just to try and help better educate the public, as well as different layers of government as well, about what we're doing, what we're achieving. And as the deputy said, just trying to bridge that gap a little bit between perceptions and reality. That's one of the objectives of that campaign.
Fantastic. Thanks, Director Nunn. And I think this would be great to share a little of these highlights at the summit next Friday, because we do have a lot of community folks there. So this Safer Calgary, maybe we could take some bullet points and put them in somewhere. So thanks. Just another question for Acting Deputy Chief Bell. The service has always been a leader in bringing community folks together. So there was a lot of work that you all did with domestic violence and bringing partners in that domestic violence collective together. Do you see that happening now with human trafficking, bringing your partners together on a regular basis, nonprofits, the service, transportation partners, to talk about how you can work together on this, and so that information is being shared on a timely basis?
Really good question, Chair. And I think that's exactly, excuse me. I think that's exactly what we're kind of ramping up to. With Operation Coven, we actually bring all our partners in on a monthly basis, basically. And we're doing that right now. And then we're looking to expand that so that we are getting other people involved in this, because we can't enforce our way out of this by ourselves. And so we recognize that, and we know that it's going to be a partnership component.
Thank you. Any other questions under this topic? Okay, thank you very much for those reports. Next on our agenda is an opportunity for commissioners who represent our commission on various external associations and committees to share any information they need. There are no presentations, but do the commissioners have any questions for any of the representatives? Okay, could I please have two commissioners move and second to receive the representative updates for information? Commissioner Hanson, Commissioner Cornett. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. This is the end of the presentations and reports for today. We will now invite public guests who registered to speak to do so. Our public participation process is designed to balance the desire to hear from the public with the need to keep our meetings a reasonable length. Those of you who registered to provide a presentation will have 4 minutes to speak, followed by commissioners having an opportunity to ask brief clarifying questions. Those who registered to ask a question will have 2 minutes to speak, followed by a member of the commission or Calgary Police Service having 2 minutes to respond. Please keep your comments to the topic you provided when you registered. We also cannot discuss a complaint about a specific employee or interaction with the police. If you would like to discuss a complaint against an officer or other employee, please contact our public complaint director or the Calgary Police Service Professional Standards section so that it can be properly addressed. I would also like to thank everyone that took the time to send us written submissions prior to this meeting. They have been provided to everyone on the commission as part of our meeting materials, and we appreciate you taking the time to write and share your insights. Finally, a reminder to members of the media that we will hear from the public first, then we'll hold a media availability for you. Can you please put through our first speaker?
Thank you, Chair. We have one public speaker today, and that's Mr. Wessam Cooley, and he would like to ask a question related to the University of Calgary protest last spring. Mr. Cooley, you should be able to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Right. Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, I've addressed the commission a few times about the police's conduct in relation to protests for Palestine in Calgary over the last year and a half, and particularly the violent police raid on the student encampment protest at the University of Calgary on May 9th last year. You'll recall that I addressed you at the commission meeting in October, and at that meeting I accused CPS and yourselves at the Police Commission of a coordinated cover-up to prevent the police from being held accountable for the violence they used on students that day. As members of the commission should be aware, last week the news site The Ort released part 1 of an investigation into the events of the encampment, including the use of unnecessary violence on the part of Calgary police officers that resulted in serious injuries. Part 2 of that investigation is due to come out this week, and the author says that it will focus on, quote, how the university leadership, Calgary police, and the Alberta government covered up police violence. Unfortunately, it's not released yet, so I may return to address you all again after it is. But at this stage, I just want to ask the Commission, if that report reveals clear evidence of a cover-up by CPS or Chief Neufeld, for example, concerning the injuries sustained as a result of police misconduct on that day. My question is, what actions will be taken by this Commission to hold those responsible to account? I've addressed you multiple times. Last time, I made very serious allegations. I was told it would be provided with updates. It would be sent to PSS. I've received nothing back. So I'm wondering at this stage, if this report reveals evidence of the things that we've been claiming here, what are you going to do to hold those responsible accountable and make sure this doesn't happen again?
Thank you very much, Mr. Cooley, for your comments. I want to say that we have heard your concerns. I truly do understand what you've brought forward before and what you brought again today. I just do want to say that we cannot hold individual officers accountable for their actions, but what we can do and what we're looking at is policies that the service has regarding protests, and we're actively doing that right now. The service is bringing forward a report, and so whatever we can share publicly, we will. We have asked the service to continue reviewing that for us, and they are actively working on it at this point. But as I said, we cannot look at what individual officers do. We can look at it as a whole. You saw that ACERT, I'm just going to, excuse me for 1 second, that there is a process for investigating these concerns. And now that ACERT has looked into whether the injuries warranted an investigation, the Service of Professional Standards Use Service is proceeding with the investigations into the complaints that they have received. But this is not a forum where we can publicly respond to concerns that have not been fully investigated.
Could I ask a short follow-up on that? Is it possible?
Sure, go ahead.
I just clarify, when you say you can't hold individual officers accountable for their actions, does that apply also to the chiefs and those present and to Chief Neufeld? Is it not the role of the police commission to hold the chief of police accountable for his actions?
It is, but it would be following an investigation into those allegations.
Okay. Thank you.
Chair, that concludes our public speakers for today.
Moving on, could I get a commissioner to move and second to receive the public submissions for information? Commissioner Nyson-Jordan and Commissioner Hansen. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Thank you to everyone for joining us today and for those thoughtful comments. The public participation session brings us to the end of our agenda. So we'll now adjourn the public portion of this month's commission meeting. Thank you to everyone for coming, and I hope you have a great evening. Acting Chief McClellan and I will move to the podium shortly, where we'll be available to answer questions from the media. Everyone is welcome to stay and watch our media availability, but only recognized members of the media will be able to participate. For commissioners and members of the service participating in the in-camera portion of our meeting, we will take a break before continuing. Please keep this room quiet until the media availability is finished. And if you are joining remotely, please remember to rejoin using the in-camera link. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So those members of the media will just do a quick rejig here, and then we will start questions. Please remember to have your media outlet name listed, and then raise your hand if you have questions. Okay, we are all set up and good to go. I do see 4 media outlets online. No one has their hands up though. So first and last call. If there's any questions, please put your hand up and we can call on you. Okay, seeing no hands, I guess you're off the hook. Thank you. That's the end of our media availability. Thank you everyone for coming today.